3, 1.
0. All engines run airlock now, and it's dumped to, first I dumped it to 9, and then it crept back up to 9.5. I dumped it again, and it's sitting at 8.5 right now. And basically, the fan behaves the same on Joe's suit. When I first turned the power on, or just started that, he's drawing 0.6 amps. It goes off scale high for a few seconds.
Hi, my name is Marissa Herrera. To me, space means exploring the unknown. And with the unknown is infinite possibility. And as an artist, that's the thing that excites me, is about the exploration of space and arts and creativity to under-resourced communities that don't really have the access to be able to think about it in that way. My takeaway from day one is how much I don't know about, space and science. I think, I have an affinity for the moon and the stars as being a dreamer, but I think just looking up at the sky, I'm going to see it in a completely different way. Day one is about a lot of excitement, connecting with the other artists, which is really cool to hear what their ideas and stuff are.
Hippity hopping along.
Hello, my name is Brian Golden. Yeah, day one, a lot of things swirling in my mind. I'm thinking about gravity, gravitational pull, and the ways that space is already located in our everyday world, like through Google Maps, through other ways. So thinking about these different topics I'm going to think about every day. I have, growing up between dance and choreography, we talk a lot about time and space between bodies and gravity when we're partnering, but not in this way that is scientific and factual. We'll be interested to explore some of these topics of weight sharing, gravity, leaning into bodies, the space composition by using some of these facts as jumping off points.
Hi everyone, my name is Celeste Lanusa, and how I found out about this project was really just going on the internet and looking at collaborations with art and science. I had been researching and thinking about ways in which I can collaborate with organizations or universities that are passionate about bringing the knowledge of science and accessible to communities like artists or communities that just really aren't as knowledgeable when it comes to science. And so really what this means to me is going back to that word and access, and bringing in these types of vernaculars that maybe seem so othered and so outside of our worlds, and bringing them inside of ways in which we can bring insight. And I can continue to gain knowledge and work collaboratively with UCLA Space Institute faculty inside of performance studies, and thinking about space culture, and thinking about how we're already so connected with space, but also thinking about what does it mean to decolonize the words and the ways in which we're using them, and how to describe our art, and how we're researching even.
Hi, my name is Felipe Cervera. I'm an assistant professor of theater and performance studies at UCLA, where I also run the Center for Performance Studies. I'm also very happy to be the dramaturg for Language of the Cosmos, a collaboration between the LA City Cultural Affairs Department and the UCLA Space Institute. I'm very excited about this project because I think we live in a world where space, outer space, is becoming increasingly important to our societies in terms of technology, in terms of planetary crises like ecological, societal. And so to think of space opens an opportunity to think of our societies differently, to think of our futures differently. And I believe that the performing arts are an excellent opportunity and space to do that, because as we know, the performing arts are all about coming together and think together and experience things together. And what greater stage, if not the planet, right? So if we think the planet as our shared existence, how can we stage that existence with dance, with theater, in a way that invites us to reconsider what it means to be a cosmic individual, a cosmic society, right now, as we enter the second fourth of the 21st century. Yeah, I hope the artists take away out of this residency the opportunity to develop new artistic languages in relation to space and space science and space material. The performing arts have always been cosmic in a way, right? Like the history of the performing arts is very much influenced by the opportunity to connect with the gods, to the sky. So what that looks like when our way of connecting with the universe is through satellites, for example. And so I'm really looking forward to their experimentations, to their research, to seeing what new ways of performance language and performance vocabularies, performance vernaculars appear in their work. and also how they think themselves and their practice in relation to what they're learning in terms of space science and tech.
The connection between arts and space, aspects about space are so intangible that for humans to appreciate the scale and the complexity of working in the space domain is very challenging. So arts have a very powerful way to convey that information, because art is a way of conveying messages to our sensory perceptions, while studying space is the method of taking data to understand something about a physical phenomenon which is happening. Tying in the two fields, one can imagine that one could give a better understanding of the scientific principle, a better understanding of how things happen in space and why things happen in space, to an audience who may not always be plugged in with all the challenges associated with working in space. So I think arts have a very powerful multiplier effect in promoting overall scientific knowledge, not just about space, but about science in general and how the scientific method works, as well as as why we need to take care of our planet. It is essentially a lifeboat. It's the only way we can survive without being decimated due to the harshness of space. I hope the students appreciate we are a tiny, insignificant little cog in the giant wheel of the universe. I think drawing that connection between, say, the Big Bang, which happened 13.8 billion years ago, and the planet that we live on, is an interesting scientific endeavor, and it points out that we are part of a much larger ecosystem and that we should be working with the rest of the ecosystem as opposed to fighting it all the time. And I hope that the artists would be able to convey that message in an accurate way to the broader community. The discovery of the unknown is what inspires me.
My name is Adam Dykert, and I'm here today to share an altered gravity workshop with the Language of the Cosmos artists. Today our focus is about sensing within the body and how we misinterpret sometimes senses and expectations about the world. And we're going to be exploring ways that the body can bring us back into the present so that we can get some differentiation between assumptions about what's going on, like assumptions about gravity, and what we're actually just sensing in this moment.
My reflections are really to be so present in space right now. And I really enjoyed this workshop with Adam because it also allows us to reflect on how we're resisting the earth, our environments, how we're always in contact with the earth. Are we welcoming that, or are we accepting that as well? Are we forcing our bodies to engage with our environments a certain way? And also, what would happen if we maybe go about our direction in a certain way? And when we think about, what would it mean if we reverse our ways of thinking, or if we go backwards, or if we're not so kind of thinking in these Western ideologies? I really enjoyed that, how he brought up different cultures and how they think about time as well. I think re-navigating yourself and ourselves as a community and how we engage also with one another is how I'm kind of continuing to develop this praxis and this way of thinking.
Hello, we just had a movement experience and it was really wonderful, and I feel very slowed down and a bit hollow in a good way. We moved a lot through space and played with gravity, but what really struck me was the weight of the head and how I can use the chin and the nose to play with the head. And I had hip surgery a few years ago, and I was noticing how I can shift the axis of my head and how that can kind of pull the fascia or the scar tissue around my hip from where it was previously injured. And it was a really fascinating experience to feel my body on internal micro level, and also researching the idea of center. And in dance, sometimes we always think about our center as something that is fixed in our lower stomach or lower abs, but feeling how the center can change as we move and balance and reorient ourselves onto the ground, or more so into the air, feeling how the center can shift and how we can spin or transverse around the center was very interesting.
I really let myself be free and not have to feel like I was doing something right or wrong. Being guided to really connect with my body, to connect with the space, and to let gravity move me. And for me to move within the gravity was actually really special. I felt disoriented, started to feel nauseous just because of not knowing like where I was in the space. I got really emotional through it, all of the movement and just being able to connect with the body and being able to connect with the ground and feeling when I was safe and when I didn't feel safe, and the things that came up in this in-between space of space. My project, it is looking about infinite possibilities in the unknown of space, and I feel like I got a small taste of what that is. Things that are infinitely possible.
In the airlock now, and it's dumped to, first I dumped to 9, and then it crept back up to 9.5. I dumped it again, and it's sitting at 8.5 right now. And basically the band behaves the same on Joe's suit. When I first turned the power on,
My takeaway has been a reminder that a couple of things. The first one is that it's so important to bring the idea of space to communities, to that community, whatever the community might be, especially communities that may not really feel familiar or connected to space exploration and space science. The stakes right now are super high for what is to come in terms of space development. And one of the consequences that we're bound to see in the next 5 years is that we're going to see the rise of the space economy. And so empowering communities to think about their connection to space, to the cosmos, and to claim back their right to the sky is super important. And to see the three choreographers explore how that shapes up in the practice and in connection to their companies, to their artistic vision, and to their communities has been super enriching.
Apollo 11, this is Houston. Go ahead.
My takeaway from this process was about exploration and looking at space and looking at creativity. We got to learn about space and gravity and the moon from experts, and to be able to work with my collaborators and create this beautiful piece titled Tres Mujeres, Una Luna, exploring gravity, the lunar cycle, and the reflection and relationship of that as three women in different cycles of our lives was really, really special. I hope everyone takes away from this process that they come out after these beautiful performances and look up at the sky and see the cosmos in a new way.
I wanted to communicate the humanity of gravity and how we're not necessarily in zero gravity when we think about space, but we're already experiencing gravity on Earth. So trying to just remind us that we are already in conversation with gravity. I feel like before this process, I thought I was not in conversation with gravity because gravity is up above us, but actually gravity is everywhere and we have resistance on the floor. And yeah, it was a beautiful process.
What I was hoping to land is that people really think about how they are engaged with the world, how they're engaged with their environment, the walls that surround them, the people they're engaging with, maybe they're not engaging with. So thinking about themselves in space and the questions all surrounding that. How are our bodies engaging in space? How are they not engaging in space? And so for me, that really comes down to a term that I learned about, celestial activism. And so really using all of that beautiful language and thinking about our gravitational biases and how that mobilizes our ways in the world. So themes of acceptance, themes of resistance, and themes of assimilation, and really having agency inside of our bodies and around our bodies with one another is really important.
A reminder that space looks very different to many different people, right? Like we all experience space differently, and we all have connections to the cosmos that are, intrinsic to who we are, to our families, to what we love, to what we hate. And so what I'm hoping people will take away after watching the performance tonight is an invitation to reconsider how they and what they think about space is key. Not only in terms of like democracy and the votes that are going to be passed through the House in terms of space policy, but also of the opportunity that we have precisely in the current moment to reclaim back our right to the sky.
Hours, 25 minutes.